Now, I mentioned Karen Duggan is going to join us next to preview the Republic of Ireland's game against Georgia on Monday. Before that, Irish international Diane Caldwell speaking ahead of that World Cup qualifier.
I was just so proud to watch the girls perform like that, and I think the team really showed what we're capable of. Terrific result against a team that obviously have now qualified for the World Cup automatically, number 2 in the world. So yeah, we showed as a team what we're capable of, but I think generally as a team we know we've another level to reach as well.
Can I ask you a little bit about the competition in the squad, Diane, particularly in defence? Like, you know, not just you, but a few of you have kind of been in and out of the starting team. You know, it's obviously a big challenge. Like, does that just lift everything around you as well? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I think generally the Irish team have always had a really good defensive line. Like, we've always had a lot of competition for places since I can remember being here. And of course, that's what makes us so strong, is that competition. And you need that all across the pitch, not just in defensive areas, but all over. And I think we're getting to that stage now where there is a really good, healthy competition, and every team needs that. We need that to get to the next level.
That is Diane Caldwell from her press conference in Georgia during the week. Karen Duggan, former Ireland international, former Player of the Year at international and Women's National League level as well. Karen, good morning to you.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Good.
So Ireland against Georgia in Tbilisi on Monday. It's the only qualifier of the window, and then after that we'll have Finland and Slovakia to come. Georgia played 6, scored none, conceded 41. It's I'm assuming there's no debate about the outcome here.
No, there's absolutely not. And we can take warning signs from the men and talk about how hot the weather will be and all that, but there would be no excuse for anything other than a comprehensive win. And I don't see it really going any other way. I think they have a pretty fit squad. There's no threats to talk about from Georgia, so it should be a banker of 3 points and just another 3 points on the board going into that more crucial window that you mentioned, Finland and Slovakia one.
The hot weather was one thing. One of the other excuses that we used for many of the men's teams over the international break, England as well as Ireland, was that sort of end of season sort of come down and, you know, trying to get yourself back up for an international window. That's not a danger at all, Karen, is it?
No, I really don't think it is, especially considering the high ebb they would have been on after the Sweden game. You would have thought that the girls would have been really looking forward to getting back into camp together because they know that they're kind of building on something special now. They had a nice, easy, friendly as well during the week. They got to rest players, got to try out new things. I think the purpose of this camp, as well as it being a warm weather camp, is more so building towards the Finland and the Slovakia game and just getting contact with the players. I think Vera will be delighted getting that extra week that she got. Not many other international have gotten that, so it's really, really good from her perspective. The girls might think otherwise because they got one less week of a break, a lot of the girls, particularly the English girls, but I don't really see any issues with it. I think that, like I said, the Slovakia game is the big one for me because they need to get used to getting good with playing with the ball and having a bit more possession. I think we struggled with them doing that the last time, and I think again the Georgia game is just another opportunity to kind of bed down patterns of play and get more comfortable and more confident on the ball, and they should have 90% possession in order to practice, I would think.
Yeah, and it's a carryover game obviously from one that was cancelled earlier in the year, which is the context to it. What do you think, like there's been so much conversation obviously about Vera Pauw's tactics and maybe at times the conservative nature of them, given what we've just been talking about and the layoff for the England-based players particularly, do they just go for it from the off, Vera, given the Karen, given the quality of opposition that this team are facing?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to approach it. I really don't see any point in she'll keep with the same shape. I'm sure she'll still play what she'll call a 3-5-2. It seems to be more of a 5 oftentimes when we're playing against the better teams, but it'll be deployed higher up the pitch. I would like to see the only changes I would like to see is get more girls on the pitch. I think that once they establish their lead, I'd like her to make use of her subs earlier on. I think that we've been fairly lucky in terms of injuries, apart from maybe Savannah McCarthy and Megan Campbell, but it's always a risk, and you have to have a full squad in order to qualify for these major tournaments. You have to have someone who could possibly come on and change the game, whereas when we've been substituting our striker, it's because we've had Heather Payne being run into the ground because she's had to cover 13, 14 kilometres chasing balls. So we want to see possibly what other people could offer up front in case there is a point against Slovakia that we do need to change things up. I'd like to see her use this as the opportunity to get more minutes into certain girls' legs, particularly being the top half of the pitch, because I think defensively you don't want to change that too much. There's been a lot of talk about changing the keeper, but I think since Courtney Brosnan has solidified that place, that girls in front of her have looked more solid as well. So I don't think the girls at the back will be tested, so I don't think there's any point in changing those. I think I'd like to see a bit more variety up front though.
What's your gut feeling on what PA will opt for, assuming everybody's fit for September in attack?
I think it's hard to say. I'd still like to see Katie in the more advanced position as opposed to that left wing back position, but I don't really see it happening. I think that she'll stick with Heather Payne and Lucy Quinn kind of as the more advanced players, Lucy maybe being more on the wing. I don't really see her changing too much because that would leave her open to us chatting about her a bit more. I think it's kind of a what's not broken, don't fix kind of a job at the moment, particularly considering we managed to score against Sweden, which no one would have predicted.
So is there a door ajar at all this window for somebody to stake a claim for one of those positions, or are you pretty certain that's how it's going to be in September?
I'm pretty certain that's how it's going to be. I don't think too many people have been afforded a huge amount of opportunity. I'd like to see the likes of Leanne Kiernan getting more game time when she's fit, just because of how good she was with Liverpool this year. She's been sticking balls in the back of the net. I'd like to see us have a creative player in midfield like Risha Littlejohn, because I think Denise's main strength is box to box. I know she had a cracker for NC Courage during the week, and it was all over Twitter, and it was great to see. But her strength is she started that attack from a deep line position. I think that's her strength, box to box. I think having another attacking midfielder in there with her actually frees her up to get the best out of her and do her role best. Where she's not being relied on to do everything up top, because I don't think that's her game. I think she's an out-and-out 8 and she's so good at it. She's world class at it. So I'd like to see Megan Connolly sitting that 6, Denise being the 8, and then potentially someone like Risha in the 10 there, or Katie. That's where I'd like to see her, where they can actually affect the game and put pressure on Slovakia. We can't afford to sit back against Slovakia, because they actually do. They have enough quality to like potentially threaten us. We know Finland do. So I'd like to see us be on the front foot against them. I think that was the difference against Finland. We saw from the first couple of minutes, Katie and Denise were pressing high, and then inevitably we started to drop back. But if we can get more comfortable with that, and I think the players to do that are having Katie higher up, having the like Verusha, people who are just more comfortable in those positions as opposed to 2 deep line midfielders.
You haven't mentioned Lily Agg, and she had impressed in her debut obviously during the week, albeit just a friendly game. Is there room for her in that setup, or where do you see her immediate future, Karen?
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't seen much of her play. She wouldn't have been in the top division last year, so I wouldn't have gotten to see her through the WSL. But to come in, it doesn't really matter the opposition. To come in on your first international and make the impact that she did, she's surely staked a claim for a place in that centre mid position, particularly if we are saying that we're going to allow a bit more freedom to the centre midfielders, because Megan Connolly can do that number 6 role by herself, particularly when we've got 3 centre backs and 3 out centre backs behind her in Niamh Fahey, Louise Quinn and Diane Caldwell. So I definitely think she's staked a claim. I haven't stuff. I'll talk to girls to see what it's looking like. I think possibly she'll get a run this week, given how she's been talked about after the Philippines game. But when it comes to Slovakia and to the Finland game, I think it will revert back and probably be someone like Jamie Finn, just to kind of shore up that midfield and people that we're just used to seeing in those positions.
Because a couple of creative players in those positions is almost a bit of a luxury against the better teams.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's the Irish way, we like to shore up the houses first and then maybe hitting the break or look at set pieces. And you could sit here and criticise it, and we'd all love to see us playing big, expansive football and being on the front foot the whole time. But after we beat Georgia, which we assume we will, when you're essentially 2 games away from the first playoff in I don't know how many years, and you're potentially qualifying for your first ever World Cup. I understand the little bit of reservation in opening yourself up at this stage of the qualifying campaign. If we were to have done it at the very beginning of the campaign and said that this is our style of play, you'd have said, okay, Vera's trying something new. We understand that she's building for the Euros. But now that there's the glimmer of hope that we will qualify for the World Cup, I wouldn't blame Vera for that more conservative approach.
Yeah, it'll all, in hindsight, look, that all made sense. That's totally fine, and maybe we tweak it up for the next campaign. But on this one, before we leave it, Finland, Slovakia, and Ireland obviously fighting it out for that second place in and that playoff spot. Finland coming to Dublin in September, and then they have Sweden at home. After that, we'll be hoping for a favour, obviously, from the Swedes, and then Slovakia will be in Tbilisi, where you seem to get the job done, and then they'll host us on the final day. With all that in the mixer, Karen, and the performances and the results that you've seen in the group so far, if you were being totally dispassionate about it, are Ireland favourites to take that second position?
They are. They are, because Slovakia did us a massive favour by taking points off Finland. I think that Finland were shell-shocked when we went there and got a result. I think they will be out for blood against us, but I think that that's a game where, again, we'll set up like we did against Sweden. We will look to not lose that game, and I think we're very good at doing that. I think that with the players we have, we're well set up to do that. So then I think it's about just going and beating Slovakia, and that's my only little worry. That's a game where we will have a little bit more possession, and we underestimated them a little bit when they came to Tala. I thought that they were very impressive on the ball. They were technically better than I expected them to be, and we were lucky to get away with a point in that one. So I think it'll go both ways. I think Finland will be out for blood, but it'll kind of suit us because we'll sit back, we'll soak up the pressure, and we should be able to hit them on the break. And then conversely against Slovakia, I think that we should have a point to prove, because the girls did come in for a bit of criticism after that game. We didn't expect not to take all 3 points at home to them. So I really think that it is in our hands. And I think that the Cards are second in our favour at the moment. I know you asked for an unbiased opinion, but I'm not really able to give one. I'm really very hopeful.
You have often spoken, and you have already, about Katie McCabe and your wish to see her playing a bit further up the pitch, particularly against maybe some of the weaker teams. Fergus Keogh was in touch this morning and asks, does McCabe not play left back for Arsenal? Leave people play in their club positions, he says.
She's been deployed at left back, she's been deployed at left wing. They've been quite fluid there. She's been higher up the pitch when she's come on later in the season. We don't have the players to afford to play players in positions like that. That's the same with the men's team. You have to chop and change. We have a world-class player in Katie McCabe. We need her in addition, where we can get her on the ball, where she can affect the game most. If we want to sit back and defend, yes, we can play her in that left back position, and she'll help soak up the pressure, and she'll play in tackles, and she'll play that wholehearted kind of left back position that we see for her club. But when she's given freedom to move in the field and affect play and link up with the strikers, she tends to score. And that's something, as an Irish team, we don't have a lot of. So yeah, you can argue that people should play in their club positions, but that's well and good when you've got a wealth of talent and a pool that's world class, and everyone's playing it at the same level as Katie McCabe, but they're simply not. She's a cut above herself, and probably Denise at this point are a cut above the rest. So I understand the argument, but I'd have to disagree.
Yeah. And anybody who's been paying any attention to anything you've said over the last couple of years would not be a bit surprised by that. Karen, we look forward to the game on Monday. We'll catch up with you again next week. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million.